athletic environment where I think it's so easy to make what you do your priority. And for me, that is not what I.
Welcome to the Sports Spectrum Podcast, the intersection of sports and faith. Here's your host for today's show, Jade McCarthy.
Ally, how are you?
I'm great. I just got back from the U.S. Open recently, but I'm doing well. I'm just excited for the year that I have ahead. And, I'm probably about, halfway through the year, but really excited for what's to come.
How would you describe this season of life that you're in right now, Ally?
Yeah, it's good. My husband and I just celebrated 2 years of marriage recently. So life has obviously changed since we got married, and what life looks like for me on the tour, balancing marriage as well as my drive for achieving what I can on the golf course. But everything is great. I'm really blessed, and I have a lot of good things moving for me. And I'd probably say just on the golf course, I haven't had quite the year that I'd like so far, but overall, I'm really thankful, and I know that God's blessed me for sure.
Take me back to the beginning, because I know golf is something that has really been a part of your life since you were a kid. So how did you discover your love for the game, and how has it stayed with you, over the course of childhood and young adulthood and now into adulthood?
So my parents put a golf club in my hand when I think I was about 4 years old. My dad tells me that he cut off a 2 or 3 iron, and I kind of hit plastic golf balls around in the yard when we lived in Tupelo, Mississippi. And we moved to Fulton when I was 4 or 5. And I really didn't get super interested in the game until I was maybe 10. And the superintendent at my home golf course, Fulton Country Club, encouraged my dad to take me to a swing instructor in West Point, Mississippi. That was around probably 11 or 12 that I went and saw him for the first time. And I just really took a liking for the game. I've always been a super competitive person. I played just about anything that I could play that had a ball involved growing up. And to the point that my mom had to draw the line at football. She said, "We're not playing football." So, I just really enjoyed the competitiveness of everything. And at some point I did realize that golf was probably going to get me to college, and eventually the pursuit of professional golf was going to, hopefully allow me to play professionally. And here I am, I graduated from college in 2015, and I've been playing the LPGA Tour for 6 years now. So golf's obviously been a huge part of my life and story from a very young age. But it's been a fun ride so far.
What do you love about competition, Ally?
I just love that there's always a search for more. I think especially with golf, it's not something that you can ever perfect. There is no perfect round. You can always walk off the golf course and say you probably left something out there. And for me, it was just it's the need to come back and to get better and to search for more, and just to compete. It's not necessarily about winning or anything like that. It's just the drive to try to get really good at something, I think, for me with golf. And I'd probably say basketball was something that I was really that I really loved at a young age as well. But golf was just something, it separated basketball, and was definitely just more of something that I could focus on, that I felt like was going to set me apart in the golf world versus the basketball world. And like I said, there's just a hunger and drive for more, because there's never that perfect round.
It's interesting because, basketball obviously is so strikingly different in that it's a team sport. Golf, I mean, you're out there with your caddy, so you have a teammate, if you will, but you're the one hitting all the shots, right? Like you're not thrown up an assist to try to help somebody
Right.
else. So
Right.
how do you kind of pull on the lessons maybe that you learned from basketball and all the other sports that you played along the way, and then marry that with the ability, I guess, for someone like yourself, always wanting to do better and maybe like try to reach that next level on the course, right? Like you said, there's never a perfect game. How do you use one and marry it with your love of the other?
Yeah, I mean, obviously, basketball and golf are very different, like you're saying. Basketball, I think, is very much an effort-focused type sport where if you hustle really hard, then hopefully that yields really good defense, and the effort yields, hopefully better basketball. Where golf, sometimes if you try too hard, it can yield poor performance. So it's
Sure.
in golf, I kind of had to learn how to practice smarter, not necessarily harder. Obviously you get to a certain level of the game, and talent and hard work kind of mesh. So you're gonna start meeting players that are maybe more talented than you, but they're also putting in just as much effort as you. So I think that is where practice comes in to play on the golf side, is the effort that you put in to practice smart, and how you can just make your game well rounded. But I think for me, like, moving from basketball that was a team sport into golf, that really excited me for college golf, because it was more of a team atmosphere, and I really thrived in that team atmosphere. And I think the same goes for like a Curtis Cup, which was a high amateur uh, qualifier for the top 8 players in the United States, playing against the top 8 players from Great Britain and Ireland. So I wanted to play that, and then now at the professional level, the Solheim Cup is like,
Mm-hmm.
okay, that's a team atmosphere that I love and that I thrive in. So those have always been goals of mine. But definitely two sports that are very different, but things that I've pulled from basketball and the team and just the love for that atmosphere that have kind of gone hand in hand with some things that I've done in the golf world too.
Ally Ewing joining us here on the Sports Spectrum podcast. And I think one of the things that I read that I love about your game was a piece that talked about how to bounce back after a shank on the course. And you had a really just, it's pretty simple kind of answer. Like it was not an in-depth, like, okay, I'm going to do this. I'm going to do that. No. It was one quick thing. Like, so how do you
Mhm.
bounce back from a shank?
Yeah, I think so much of golf is, there's a perfectionist type of mindset, I think, for me at times, where I really tried to perfect everything. But when I've think about like myself and growing up in sports and everything, just tried to really be athletic and tried to let the athleticism of, how I've trained and how I prepared take over in a competition, rather than thinking that, okay, I have to swing this way, or I have to chip this way, or I have to putt this way, and just kind of reacting to the shot that I need to hit. And like you said, with a shank, like I just kind of gave an answer, because it was like, okay, well, it happened. It's not a good shot. It's a shot that all golfers are like, "Woo, that's not good." But you just kind of try to roll it. Just shrug it off, and you've got more golf ahead of you, so you can't let it just linger in your mind. And that's just kind of how I responded to it, and tried not to let it affect anything that I had moving forward.
Yeah. You can't control every single thing, much as we all try sometimes. And sometimes
Exactly.
you just got to like put it out of your brain, find a way to maybe laugh and just keep rolling forward.
That's exactly it. You laugh it off.
Um, Golf also brought you to your husband. And that wasn't all that far from home. So tell me that story about how you and Charlie met.
Yeah, so I obviously played 4 years of college golf at Mississippi State, and Old Waverly and Mossy Oak, two great golf courses that are 25 minutes from Starkville, Mississippi, where Mississippi State is. I chose to stick around and practice and play at those golf courses. Mr. Bryan, who owns them, was great when I graduated from college and just said, hey, you've got a place to practice and prepare for your professional career. And I couldn't pass that up. I loved Fulton and I loved Fulton Country Club, but it was, it's a 9-hole golf course with no driving range. And I would change nothing about my past, but knew that moving forward for my professional career, I had a lot of things at Old Waverly that could help me get better, including both of my coaches. But I graduated in 2015. I played Symetra Tour, which is now the Epson Tour, in 2016. And in the summer of 2017, Charlie came in as the assistant coach for the men's golf program. And my head coach that I had at Mississippi State, Ginger, tried to play matchmaker for us. And it was actually in August, and I just played really well at the British Open, and I'd gotten back home, and they wanted to have a get together to welcome Dusty Smith, the new head coach for the men's team, and Charlie, the assistant. Just a little kind of housewarming gig. And I knew that it was a matchmaker. He didn't know that she was trying to play matchmaker.
You had the leg up.
Yeah, I went into this situation, freaking out, like ready to impress. And he's just kind of nonchalant. And I'm like, does he not know that this is a matchmaker type thing? Which he didn't. So we laugh about it to this day. But eventually it all worked out. And, we went out on a couple of dates, and the rest is history. Just celebrated 2 years. So yeah, it's crazy.
That's a great story, though. I love how you knew and he didn't.
Oh, 100%. I think that's completely a girl thing. Like, everyone's always trying to have their hand in, oh, I've got a great setup for you. I think you should go on a date with so-and-so. And then sometimes the guys are just like, okay, cool. Yeah. Sounds good.
Yeah. They just don't put the same amount of thought into it.
Yeah, exactly.
So 2 years together now, married, and what is that like, trying to, balance? He's now the head coach at Mississippi State, and you're obviously playing on the LPGA. So what is that? I use the word balance loosely because I don't know if there ever really is such a thing as true balance. But how do you guys make that work?
Yeah, it's extremely hard. And, we're still, we still figure it out as we go. But the main thing that both of us came into this relationship and marriage knowing and understanding was the time that the LPGA was going to take, from our marriage, and the time that him coaching college golf was going to take for our marriage. And, we've certainly had to give some on either side. And we've certainly, probably selfishly made poor decisions, maybe a week that I should have probably come home that would be better, and maybe not have a late practice to utilize that week that I have off. It's just kind of been learning, and it's been tough to try to, as you say, balance that time. But the big part is that we have that understanding, and that we know when we do have our time together, it's, we try to be completely focused and where we each are. And if that's at home, or if that's a date night or something like that, we try to, just maximize our time together. And, when I retire, life will look different, but for now it's just navigating both of our schedules and making the most of everything, for sure.
Where does your faith come from, Ally?
I grew up in church. My parents, it's actually pretty funny. I have all 4 grandparents. I'm still blessed to have all 4 of my grandparents. I turned 30 this year. It's super special. They were actually out at the US Open watching all 4 of them. And so my grandparents actually live like less than half a mile from each other. My parents grew up in church together, going to the same church and the same youth group. And I obviously grew up going to that church as well. So just small town. And my parents had me in Sunday school. We were going to vacation Bible school, and just, tried to do, what most parents who are rooted in faith is just get their kids in church. And, we were there for the most part every time the doors were open. And a lot of that was great for me in my faith journey. I came to Christ when I was 8. But it probably, when I got to college, tried to navigate some of the, the college life and everything, and certainly made my own mistakes. But my journey is definitely deeply rooted in the fact that my parents have shown me what it looks like to to be believers and to be Christ followers, and to show me what a Christian marriage looks like. And that is obviously why I'm deep rooted in my faith, and still fall short every day, but try to be the best that I can be.
Sure. We all certainly do. We are all human,
Yeah.
so we all fall short. And we're so lucky that we have such a forgiving God who is willing to chase after us and run us down and embrace us with open arms all the time. What does it look like to you to be living out your faith at this point in your life?
Absolutely. That's a great question. And I think for me, like, especially immersed in a golf, athletic environment where I think it's so easy to make what you do your priority. And for me, that is not what I try to define myself as. When I was, growing up and playing golf and sports, my parents really just instilled in me that, yeah, it's cool what we're doing, but it's only a platform that God has given you. And so when I carry that into where I am right now, I've always said that golf is not who I am; it's just what I do.
Sure.
And that's when I walk off the golf course. I certainly, it's not every round, but I try to just live my life on the golf course that is just a good light for people. I try to carry myself in a way that just shines a light on being a good example. And if that's going out and shooting 65, I hope people can just see that, I'm carrying myself in a good way. If I go out and shoot 85, I hope that I'm walking around the golf course and I, don't look very different than if I were shooting 65. And that's appreciating the volunteers that are, sweating their butts off out there
Yeah.
to help us out. And, that's just, it's just I've tried it, and I don't do it all the time, but I just try to live my life in that no matter what happens on the golf course, I'm just doing everything for the glory of God. And that's my life verse is 1 Corinthians 10:31 is that whatever you do it for the glory of God. And that's just what I try to do, and how I try to live my life on and off the golf course.
Ally Ewing here with us on the Sports Spectrum podcast. And I know, when you're out there shooting a 65, it's a lot easier to feel like you're carrying yourself the way you want to than when you're out there and you're battling to have an 82. Like
Yeah.
it's a lot easier. So what are the scriptures that you rely on, or what are the things that you rely on to help you through those days when maybe you're struggling, or you're facing a challenge, or your game isn't where you want it to be? Like what are the pieces that you rely on to help you still feel like you're living to glorify God?
Absolutely. And as I mentioned, that golf is not who I am, it's just what I do. So when I walk off the golf course after a poor round of golf, I know that I have, I think about what Scotty Scheffler said after the Masters, which is kind of a very similar thought process to what I have. Obviously, I haven't had as much recent success as he has, but if I walk off the golf course and I, finished last, or if I shot 82, I know that I'm going to leave the golf course with a husband that loves me, family who loves me, a God that still loves me, although I fail him all the time. I have friends on tour that pick me up and lift me up who are also believers, and just have a great idea and a great perspective on life in general. So I just know that in the grand scheme of what I'm doing on a professional circuit, that is certainly, sometimes cameras are on me and everything like that. I know that in the grand scheme of things, that it's just a very small part of what I'm actually here on this earth to do. And that's to, just to shed a light, be an example, live a life that is as Christ-like as I can. And to just be that example to hopefully, in the golf world, to little girls that maybe want to play the tour, maybe see something different in how I carry myself and want to be like me. And then hopefully they can say, oh, well, she says she's got Christ. What does that look like? And for me, if I'm able to reach one person doing that versus, being the number one player in the world and win 100 golf tournaments and just live a life that's meaningless to Christ, I'll take this life over that one in a heartbeat.
Amen. It's really special to be able to be that example to people. I mean, I'm a mom, I have two daughters, and I love that because I think that that is just it's so special on an eternal level as opposed to
Absolutely.
on a worldly level. Um,
Hmm.
you talked about along the way, you know, you've a community with you now on the tour that you rely on. You obviously had community growing up as a kid. You mentioned youth group through church and you know, kind of always being there and teams being important to you along the way. So how much is having that community of believers around you important on the journey?
Oh, it's so important, especially at a professional level now. If you make the cut, you're playing on Sunday, which is, when you're used to going to church,
Yeah.
you're used to being rooted in that fellowship. So I've got a great group of, we do small group on our tour. We have a tour fellowship leader named Chris Stevens, who is great to come out basically on a weekly basis. And we do a Wednesday night fellowship. So having, my parents send scripture, just being in contact. I mean, what I would do if I played the LPGA tour and phones weren't around, like I can't even imagine. Just to be able to have that constant communication with people that have supported me my entire life. It's, I've always been a really independent person, but I also heavily rely on that emotional support from other people. So um, just to always have that it's so special for me.
And I guess the reverse of that is you've had all these people who have fed into you and continue to do so, Allie. How do you look to feed into other people and help them along their own faith walks?
Yeah, I think for right now it is trying to get as many rookies involved in our fellowship as we can. I think it's we're just seeing a world that's kind of, you know transformed into pushing Christ and faith out of everything. And our tour fellowship is we're trying to pull more and more people into our fellowship and just make them feel welcome, make them feel that we care about them, that there's a God who cares about them, that there's um, that their score is not who they are, that the tour is a great place to be, but also you've got the support system that can be there for you, that can show you that support. So for me, it's that, and it's. I know once I retire, it'll probably look a little different. And being, my husband and I have gotten planted at a church here in Starkville. It's called Crosspoint Church, and I know that when I retire, I'll be able to get more rooted in that church, and that's something that I actually really look forward to. And eventually having kids and getting them rooted in church as well. So um, right now it's just trying to be in that golf community and try to outreach and to bring rookies and players that are certainly missing out on Christ into our fellowship.
Ally Ewing from the LPGA joining us here on the Sports Spectrum podcast. And you said earlier, Ally, that golf is a platform that God has given you. And I know just from talking to you that you feel so fortunate for that to be the
Mm.
case. What do you hope that it looks like in the coming months and the coming years for you?
Yeah, I hopefully, I want to play good golf because I feel like if I'm able to play good golf, then more people are able to see my story. But if not that, God has everything already written up in His plans. And if that means I never get a win on the LPGA Tour again, it would just be that these next however many years of me playing golf is just filled with joy, filled with me impacting people's lives in a positive way, and just showing that love to them, that love of Christ. And I'm also in a great position with Charlie being the women's golf coach at Mississippi State to step into that role of a coach's wife and hopefully, mentor girls that are in college. And we're certainly still somewhat new to that, but just being able to step into team dinners and just a team atmosphere like that and be able to impact lives, hopefully, for years to come, I think is, it's a big part of what's exciting about college golf for my husband and I. And obviously being able play college golf at Mississippi State and still having an impact on golf professionally. It's a really cool place to be in. And for me to just be able to impact those college girls' lives, and then whether it's young girls or anyone who follows the LPGA Tour, just be that example for them. That's how I hope to impact lives moving forward.
Lastly, before I let you go, Ally, what would you say is the lesson that God is teaching you right now?
Patience. I think
so
we're
often for all of us, right?
I think patience is such a big term for every single human being, especially believers. Just to, I think we all want what we want now, and whether that's praying for something that you really feel like God should be answering right now, but it's His timing, not ours.
Yes.
It's just being patient and relying on what we know, that in God's timing things will come to fruition if it's meant to be. And whether that's patience and what's going on in life, or patience and the hard work that I put in for what I'm doing on the tour, those are certainly two separate things that I try to separate. But it's just to be patient and know that God's timing is better than mine, and that His will is better than mine for my life, and just really trusting that and relying on that, and not trying to get ahead of myself and not trying to take charge and be in control. So those are definitely things that I'm relying on right now.
Yeah. Be still and know that I am God.
Yes,
That's
absolutely.
that's what comes to mind. It's that trust and
Mm-hmm.
knowing that He's got it. And we just don't understand all of it. Ally, we really
That's right.
appreciate your
That's
spending.
right.
Yeah, we really appreciate your spending some time with us here, and continued good luck on the tour, and to your husband with Mississippi State and the golf team. And I love how you guys are just leaning into the community all around at different levels. And I just think it's a terrific platform, and you're doing great things with it for God.
Well, thanks, Jade. I really appreciate it. Thank y'all for having me on. It's been fun.
Thanks so much for watching today on Sports Spectrum. Make sure you click that subscribe button so you don't miss any other videos. And if you want more stories on sports and faith, check out our website, sportsspectrum.com.